Gender inequality is an important issue today and oftentimes starts off from gender norms set in childhood. Let's take a look at how the average American household approaches gender norms.
Jake, what are you doing playing with your sister's toy? That's a girl's toy. You don't want to be playing with that. Boys should be playing with boys' toys. You don't want people thinking there's something wrong with you, do you? Here.
Now, 18 years later, Jake has become a part of the UCF football team. He has become a vital part of the team and a member of the UCF National Organization for Women. Jake has landed himself an interview about the gender inequalities in sports with a member from the He for She movement.
Good morning, guys. I'm here with MVP player Jake, who's also a proponent for women's rights. So, Jake, what got you into the women's rights movement?
Well, being a nursing major, I'm constantly around strong women. I think that this gives me a unique insight into the hardships of their lives due to common gender inequalities in society.
Look at you breaking stereotypes. A football player, male nurse. So, how do you feel about male athletes receiving $179 million more in athletic scholarships each year than females do?
Really?
And why do you think this is?
I had no idea. That's really unfair. It must be due to the majority of public schools in America putting their funding into men's football and basketball and things like that. We don't really prioritize women's sports the way we should.
Wow, Jake, that's an interesting theory. But did you know that only 6 to 8% of total media sports coverage is devoted to women's athletics? And that's according to the Women's Sports Organization.
I was unaware of that statistic. It makes sense, though, if you think about it. It's probably a major factor to why women athletes receive less scholarships money than men do. Due to receiving less media coverage, women's sports naturally will receive less revenue than men's sports. I believe that until women athletes receive the media coverage that they're due, they will continue to make less than their male counterparts.
So, do you think the media shapes the public's opinion on what sports they should enjoy watching?
I mean, not necessarily. I understand that many people are going to be drawn to seeing the biggest and the strongest compete for men's sports. I mean, especially contact sports like football and basketball. I think this is simply due to the typical genetic differences between men and women. And that being said, though, that there are plenty of sports that take on a high level of finesse and skill to play, which women do just as well as men, like gymnastics or figure skating. Sports like this, they require incredible talent and finesse and skill. And for example, think about this, like Ronda Rousey, in the UFC, she's proven without a doubt that, watching women in full contact sports can be just as much fun as watching male competitors.
Okay, I really liked your example having to do with the UFC female fighters, starting to pull in attention and in the same crowd as guys do. It supports the idea that the more media exposure can really help women's sports gain the recognition they deserve. Well, Jake, thank you for coming and answering these questions for me.
Of course, no problem.
Now let's take a look at how Jade is doing as she begins to learn about the gender inequalities that are pervasive in American education.
Hey, Mom.
Hey.
So, I'm almost done taking all my gen eds, and my sociology professor thinks I should become a social sciences major since she thinks I have a knack for the field, but I think I want to stick with getting a business degree.
Yeah, I mean, Jade, you are still pretty young, but I do agree with your professor. I think you would do very well in sociology. The thing is, you just have to remember that that is a male-dominated field, and business is already so cutthroat. You being a woman, it's just going to be a lot harder for you to get ahead in that field.
Well, yeah, but I've always wanted to be the head of my own business. I don't want to have to do something the way someone else does. I don't want to have to answer to someone else. I want to do things the way I want it to be done.
I mean, you can still be somewhat autonomous in the sociology field, and I'm pretty sure people like, guidance counselors or even a social worker, they have a pretty good amount of wiggle room, and, they get to decide mostly how they want their jobs to get done.
I'm sorry, Mom. I don't mean to sound like a snob or anything, but those jobs don't sound nearly as prestigious as being the CEO of a big business.
Well, Jade, of course, if that's what you want to do, I'm going to support you in any job decision you make. But just remember that business that you want to start, being the CEO of a company, nothing comes easy, and that certainly won't come easy to you, so you're going to have to work really hard for it.
Don't worry, Mom. I got this.
So Jake, it's almost time to choose your major. Have you thought a little bit more about a career in medicine, You know, you talked about that before, and you know, your mom and I think that'd be a great job for you, becoming a doctor.
Yeah, I mean, well, Dad, I'm interested in going in the medical field, but I also think I'm more interested in going into nursing school. I want to become a nurse.
That's great. I mean, it's still in the medical field, but do you really want to be in a career that's dominated by mainly women? I mean, do you want to be considered as a male nurse? I mean, that's kind of what they call them.
I mean, yeah, I do. It doesn't really bother me too much what people think regarding that. Nursing offers many great opportunities, and if I do go to nursing school, I think I want to become a nurse practitioner. As a matter of fact, there are plenty of male nurses, and they're all opening up their own practices, and they're working with some of the best doctors in medicine today.
You know, I just think about what I'm going to tell my friends. You know, when your friends ask you, what is your son doing? I'm going to tell them he's a nurse. That's something you want to say for your daughter, you know, not necessarily your son. And, you know, you think you want to tell your friends, oh, my son, he's going to be a lawyer, he's going to be a neurosurgeon, not really a nurse.
Thanks. Supportive as usual, Dad.
Gosh, honey, don't be so ridiculous. There's nothing wrong with being a male nurse. And you know what? The field is actually in need of more of them anyway, so why are you trying to tear them down?
Thanks, Mom. Even though that there are more female than male nurses and nurse practitioners, men actually have the opportunity to make more money and more prestige than, you know, women. And I think I should be able to go into the field that makes me happy,
Yeah,
not successful.
I understand that.
Although Jade is right in every sense to pursue her dream, her mom makes a valid point. According to Business Insider, women are 15% less likely to be promoted within their organization than men are. Meanwhile, the only repercussions that Jake has to worry about within the nursing field is being looked at as feminine from people who only adhere to stereotypes. Now, 22 years later, the family meets up again for a small get-together, and Jade is an established businesswoman for the United Health Group Corporation and is a VP currently working towards a promotion to become the CEO. Meanwhile, Jake is a nurse practitioner who is looking to open up his own practice.
Hey Jade, so how's work going?
It's alright. I've been trying to get a promotion, but they keep turning me down.
Yeah, well, I don't want to say I told you so, but we both knew that you going into the business field was a risk. And I actually read a statistic the other day saying that only 6% of women are CEOs in businesses, and that's not even mentioning the wage gap there is between men and women.
I know. I can't believe at my position I still get paid 21% less than my male counterparts. I mean, it's hard to be respected when you work as hard as your peers and you still get paid less.
Yeah, well, me and your father are so proud of you anyways, and I know even if you don't get it this time, you will get it eventually. You already made it this far.
Thanks, Mom. You're the best.
I completely agree with your mother. I'm very proud of both you and your sister for becoming so successful in your separate fields, even though one is dominated by men and the other by women.
Wow, Dad, you mean to tell me that you're not embarrassed to call your son a nurse anymore?
Of course not, of course not. I'm sorry for what I said back then, and if I could go back and take it back, I would. Obviously, I wasn't seeing clearly. I mean, you're a natural-born caregiver.
Despite the many gender inequality issues such as societal norms, education, and occupation, both Jade and Jake have become successful in their own individual careers. It is important to remember that just because society tells you something is normal, that doesn't mean that you have to adhere to it.